Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the glamorous, treacherous, and ever-evolving world of Los Angeles fashion. Today is a spectacular day to unpack one of the most explosive and game-changing developments we have seen in recent memory. The balance of power is shifting, and the mighty are facing a reckoning unlike any other. Let us explore the dramatic unraveling of an empire. For months, the glass-walled corridors of Forester Creations have been echoing with the sound of Steffy Forrester Finnegan's absolute, unyielding authority. She is paraded through the executive suites, not merely as a co-CEO, but as the self-appointed, unquestionable sovereign of her family's legacy. Her recent actions, characterized by a breathtaking level of executive hubris, have set the stage for a spectacular downfall. From condescendingly pausing Logan Spencer's beloved Hope for the Future line to arrogantly brushing off the prophetic warnings of her chief operating officer, Carter Walton, Steffy has operated under the dangerous delusion that she is untouchable. She has worn the Forrester crown with an iron grip, convinced that her bloodline grants her immunity from consequence, oversight, and basic professional decency. Across the city, a different kind of empire has been rapidly ascending, casting a long, intimidating shadow over Steffy's fiercely guarded territory. Katie Logan Spencer and Bill Spencer have orchestrated a masterful, globally broadcasted launch of their new fashion collection. The billboards illuminating the skylines of major cities worldwide are not just advertisements. They are declarations of war in the eyes of Steffy Forrester. The agonizing thorn in Steffy's side is the undeniable fact that the breathtaking success of the Logan brand is built upon the foundational brilliance of Eric Forster's designs. To Steffy, this is not a mere business rivalry. It is a profound, deeply personal desecration of her family's sacred intellectual property. She views the Logans not as competitors, but as scavengers feasting upon the Forrester legacy. Driven by a blinding cocktail of resentment, territorial instinct, and unchecked arrogance, Steffy makes a catastrophic tactical error. She decides to launch a unilateral, devastating legal strike against Katie Logan. Without consulting her father, Ridge Forrester, without heeding the cautious legal counsel of Carter Walton, and most egregiously, without seeking the permission of the patriarch himself, Steffy drafts a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. She intends to sue Katie Logan into oblivion for the unauthorized use and theft of Eric Forster's designs. In Steffy's mind, she is the righteous avenger, the ultimate protector of the Forrester name, wielding the legal system as a sword to finally sever the Logan family's parasitic attachment to her company. When Steffy issues her draconian legal threat, she expects Katie to cower, to crumble under the sheer weight of the Forrester corporate machine. She anticipates a swift, humiliating surrender. She envisions herself standing victorious in the boardroom, having successfully defended her grandfather's honor and solidified her absolute supremacy. However, Steffy's monumental arrogance has entirely blinded her to the complex, deeply rooted historical realities that exist outside her own narrow, self-serving narrative. She has fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the relationship between her grandfather and the woman she is attempting to destroy. The confrontation that ensues is nothing short of seismic. As Steffy confidently lays out her legal demands, fully expecting to watch Katie Logan break, the atmosphere in the room abruptly shifts. The doors open, and Eric Forrester, the legendary founder, the creative soul, and the ultimate authority of the Forrester dynasty, enters the fray. Steffy looks to her grandfather, expecting validation, expecting him to join her in condemning the Logans for their perceived thievery. Instead, she is met with a gaze of profound, chilling disappointment and simmering fury. Eric does not look at Katie with the anger of a robbed artist. He looks at his granddaughter with the wrath of a betrayed patriarch. In a moment that shatters the very foundation of Steffy's reality, Eric Forrester delivers a bombshell revelation that instantly completely neutralizes Steffy's entire legal and moral crusade. He unequivocally declares that the designs in question were never stolen. They were not misappropriated, they were not hijacked, and they were certainly not the subject of corporate espionage. With a steady, authoritative voice that brooks no argument, Eric reveals that he voluntarily and intentionally gifted those specific designs to Katie Logan. He explains that this grand gesture was not a business transaction, but a deeply personal repayment of a long-standing debt of gratitude. The revelation of this debt of gratitude hangs in the air, a heavy testament to the complex, intertwined histories of the Forester and Logan families. Histories that Steffy has conveniently chosen to ignore in her quest for dominance. Eric reminds the room, and a stunned Steffy, of the times Katie stood by him, supported his vision, and offered her unwavering loyalty when others in his own family, perhaps even Steffy herself, had doubted him. By gifting her these designs, Eric was offering a profound token of respect and appreciation to a woman he genuinely values. Steffy's lawsuit, therefore, is not a defense of Eric's legacy. It is a direct, insulting assault on his personal agency and his right to bestow his own creations upon whomever he chooses. Eric's fury is a terrifying spectacle to behold. It is not the loud, explosive anger of a momentary disagreement. It is the deep, resonant wrath of a patriarch who realizes his legacy is being weaponized by his own flesh and blood. He turns his formidable ire entirely upon Steffy. How dare she, he demands to know, presume to speak for him? How dare she initiate catastrophic legal action, risk public scandal, and threaten a woman he deeply respects, all without having the basic decency and respect to consult him first? Eric explicitly strips away Steffy's illusion of supreme authority, reminding her in no uncertain terms that while she may hold the title of co-CEO, he is the founder, the owner of his own intellectual property, and the ultimate arbiter of the Forester name. The dressing down Steffy receives is brutal, comprehensive, and entirely public within the confines of their executive circle. Eric systematically dismantles her justifications, exposing her lawsuit not as an act of corporate protection, but as a petty, vindictive, and breathtakingly arrogant manifestation of her personal vendetta against the Logans. He makes it devastatingly clear that her unilateral actions have not protected the company. They have embarrassed it, and more importantly, they have embarrassed him. Steffy, who has spent months dictating terms to everyone around her, is suddenly reduced to a scolded child, shrinking under the overwhelming weight of her grandfather's righteous indignation. But Eric does not stop at a mere verbal reprimand. The betrayal he feels at Steffy's presumptuousness pushes him to deliver an ultimatum that rocks Steffy to her very core. Looking directly into the eyes of the granddaughter who claims to be the ultimate Forester, Eric issues a chilling threat. If she proceeds with this baseless lawsuit, or if she ever again attempts to wield his name without his explicit consent, he will completely and unequivocally disinherit her. He threatens to strip her of her shares, forcefully remove her from her executive position, and legally sever her from the financial and creative legacy of Forester Creations. The threat of disinheritance is not an idle one, and Steffy knows it. Eric's words strike with the force of a physical blow, completely destabilizing her sense of self. For Steffy Forester Finnegan, her identity is inextricably, obsessively linked to her position within the company. She does not merely work at Forester Creations. She believes she is Forester Creations. Her entire worldview is constructed around the narrative that she is the fierce, uncompromising guardian at the gates, protecting her family's empire from the invading Logan horde. To be threatened with expulsion from that very empire by the man who built it induces a psychological earthquake of unprecedented magnitude. Steffy is abruptly plunged into a severe, paralyzing identity crisis. The ground beneath her feet has vanished. The absolute certainty with which she has operated has evaporated, replaced by a terrifying vulnerability. If Eric is willing to side with Katie Logan, a woman Steffy views as the ultimate enemy, over his own granddaughter, then what does it actually mean to be a Forester? Has her lifelong, exhausting crusade against the Logans been nothing more than a misguided, self-destructive obsession? She is forced to confront the horrifying possibility that her ruthless tactics have not made her the hero of the Forester legacy, but rather its greatest internal threat. The dilemma now facing Steffy is an agonizing, deeply humiliating catch. 22. Eric has laid out the terms of her redemption, and they are brutal. In order to salvage her relationship with her grandfather, maintain her position within the company, and avoid being entirely cut off from the family fortune, she must do the one thing she finds most abhorrent. She must humble herself, swallow her monumental, suffocating pride, and issue a sincere, unreserved apology to Katie Logan. She must look the woman she just attempted to destroy in the eye and admit that she was entirely, unequivocally wrong. For Steffy, apologizing to a Logan is akin to emotional and psychological surrender. It is an admission of defeat in a war she has waged her entire adult life. It requires her to publicly acknowledge that her authority is not absolute, that her judgment is flawed, and that Katie Logan occupies a respected, protected position within Eric Forester's heart and business ecosystem. The alternative, however, is even more terrifying. If she refuses to apologize, if she clings stubbornly to her pride and her vendetta, she will lose everything. She will be cast out of the boardroom, stripped of her titles, and forced to watch from the sidelines as the company she loves is run by others, perhaps even by the very Logans she sought to defeat. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the Logan camp is one of profound vindication and triumphant security. Katie Logan, who had steeled herself for a grueling, ugly legal battle, finds herself completely exonerated and shielded by the most powerful man in the fashion industry. She did not have to fight Steffy's ruthless corporate machine. Eric Forester fought it for her. This victory is not just legal. It is deeply emotional and symbolic. It validates Katie's talent, her business acumen, and her long-standing, genuine connection with Eric. Bill Spencer, standing by her side, revels in the absolute humiliation of the Forester co-CEO, recognizing that the Logan brand is now virtually untouchable, blessed by the patriarch himself. The ripple effects of this catastrophic confrontation spread rapidly through the halls of Forester Creations, altering the dynamics of every major player. Ridge Forester, who has passively enabled Steffy's dictatorial behavior for far too long, is forced to witness the devastating consequences of his inaction. He watches, paralyzed, as his father threatens to destroy his daughter's future. Ridge realizes with sickening clarity that Carter Walton was entirely right. Carter's prophetic warnings about the dangers of executive hubris and the inevitable blowback of pushing people too far have materialized in the most spectacular, destructive way possible. Hope Logan Spencer, who has been pushed to the absolute brink by Steffy's condescension and the repeated stalling of her fashion line, watches this unraveling with a complex mixture of shock and quiet satisfaction. The woman who haughtily asked her, "Or what?" when challenged is now being brought to her knees, begging for her corporate life. Steffy's humiliation provides hope with the ultimate validation. It proves that Steffy's power is an illusion, entirely dependent on Eric's tolerance. This monumental shift in power only further radicalizes Hope, fueling her determination to push her mother, Brooke, into launching a full-scale hostile takeover for Steffy's suddenly vulnerable co-CEO seat. The blood is in the water, and the sharks are circling. Alone in her opulent, glass-walled office, the physical toll of the stress begins to manifest in Steffy. The Los Angeles sunset casts long, ominous shadows across the room, mirroring the darkness encroaching upon her career. The legal documents she had drafted with such malicious glee now sit on her desk like a death warrant for her own professional existence. The silence in the room is deafening, amplifying the chaotic, terrified thoughts racing through her mind. She is entirely isolated on an island of her own making, having alienated her allies, ignored her advisors, and infuriated her patriarch. Steffy must now wrestle with the ghosts of her family's past. She thinks of her grandmother, the formidable Steffy Forester, who also waged endless, bitter wars against the Logans. Would Steffy applaud Steffi's ruthless attempt to protect the designs, or would she condemn her for the sheer stupidity of acting without Eric's blessing? Steffy realizes with a sinking heart that true power does not come from screaming the loudest or threatening the hardest. It comes from strategic alignment and the respect of those who actually hold the keys to the kingdom. She has failed on both counts. As the deadline for her decision approaches, the weight of the impending apology presses down upon Steffy like a physical burden. To walk into Katie Logan's presence, to lower her head, and to speak words of contrition goes against every instinct in her body. It will be the most bitter pill she has ever had to swallow. Yet, as she looks around her office, at the legacy she has fought so desperately to claim as her own, she knows she has no other choice. Her arrogance has led her to the edge of a precipice, and Eric Forester has made it abundantly clear. She can either bow her head in humility, or she could be pushed over the edge into oblivion. The stage is now set for one of the most agonizing, dramatic scenes in the history of the Forester-Logan rivalry. Steffy Forester Finnegan, the untouchable queen of Los Angeles fashion, must humble herself before her greatest rival to save her own corporate life. The balance of power has irrevocably shifted. Hubris has met its inevitable nemesis, and the fallout will reshape the landscape of Forester creations for years to come. The war is far from over, but in this devastating battle, the Logan family has emerged victorious, not through their own aggression, but through the